Okay, everybody, it's Todd. How are you? So Shane Bush and I have been kicking this idea around for a couple years of doing a class together. And we want to do a class for people who've been doing safety differently, human performance hop stuff for a while. So I don't know what to call it. We played around with the idea of calling it a master class, and that's just pompous and arrogant. That's stupid. An advanced class, I don't know what that means either. I mean, who's advanced? Tell me that. What we finally decided, and you'll hear it happen in this podcast, is what we want to do is bring together a group of people who do this for a living and think about these problems a lot and have a big discussion. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Pre-Accident Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Conklin. This podcast is the Big Discussion Podcast. So today we're going to talk about a workshop we're having in Denver, Colorado at the Embassy Suites Stapleton, which is right across from the House of Dankness. For those of you who care about the House of Danking, if you like to be danked, this is a great place to go danking. We're going to have a big discussion, which is an advanced workshop, and what we decided to do is just have a conversation. So I called Shane to talk about doing this, and I secretly pushed record. And so today's podcast is that conversation. In fact, you're going to hear the name Big Discussion kind of created. This workshop is February 6th and 7th, 2019 in Denver, Colorado. The first entire day is a roundtable discussion just on kind of the next phase of safety differently for applied users, not for scholars necessarily, although they're welcome, not for consultants, they're welcome too if they want to come, I guess, but for people who do application, who apply this in organizations. And we want to start by thinking about what are our problems, what do we know, where have we learned, what do we know, and where do we head that, and then end really that second day with a deep dive discussion on learning. In fact, I think I'm going to invite Andrea Baker or Bob or both of them to come and actually talk the same concept, the advanced concepts, the big discussion around learning, and then kind of wrap it up that second afternoon, which is a perfect 2 days in Denver. It's kind of a cold time to be in Denver, but you got coats. Just wear them. This podcast is about that. But if you can't come, and I understand that completely because not everybody can, well, that's okay too. You can still listen to the podcast and kind of get a feel for what's happening. Because my guess is, we've never done this before, but my guess is, if it goes well, we'll do it again. That's what I think. That's my theory. I don't know if I'm right on that because sometimes my application changes from my theory, but I can't imagine this being negative at all. In fact, it seems like it's a great opportunity to sort of show and tell and learn. And there's nothing better than showing and telling and learning. But it's not a listen to me while I talk to you, not me personally, but I guess kind of me personally or Shane personally. This is really about listening. We're all going to listen to each other. And the goal at the end of that 2 days is that you come out with a path forward, a plan for deliberate improvement, where you go next, and what techniques, tips, tools, things you can do to actually make this happen for your organization as effectively as possible. That's why we want it to be focused on people who have a program, who've got pretty good knowledge. They don't need a background discussion. We don't have to start at the fundamentals, and who are moving forward. No matter the size of your company or what your company does, that doesn't matter. Little tiny ones are great. Great big huge ones are great. Everybody's welcome. But the opportunity to learn from each other, that's worth its weight in gold. So let's listen carefully to the conversation, and when it's done, I'll tell you where you can go to get more information. February 6th and 7th in Denver, Colorado, the Big Discussion with Todd Conklin and Shane Bush. So let me ask this question, because I think this is the question to ask is, if you had a day...
Are we in the podcast yet?
Yeah, we can do it. It's recording now, so we're good.
Oh, we're starting. We're going?
Yeah. Do you want to burp or fart or something?
No, just didn't know whether I should keep the swear words to a limit now or what.
Wow. I was going to say, Shane, you're such a giant swearer that I was really worried about that. That is a big problem we have with you. Yeah.
You got to go back and edit it every time.
Yeah, take out all the
and then the
words.
blankety blank blank blank.
You were so funny. You were just hilarious. You make me laugh. So if you had a day with your friend Todd to talk about human performance with people who have already kind of gone past the fundamentals, what do you think that day would look like?
You know, it's that age-old question that I think we both have talked about, and that is human performance is an interesting subject in the fact that it sounds good, it makes sense, it tends to ring true with people. We've talked about all this in the past, but everybody struggles with the implementation of it, which I find interesting because I've gone through it before at the INL, and I know you have. So I think a day with us would be, what is it that seems to get in your way? What are the concerns, or what are the hurdles that prevent you from jumping in and just following the pre-described path? Because it's been, I mean, you got the 8 stages that have been out there forever. Not that those are the only, that is the only guidance document, but it certainly has worked for a lot of people. And so I think taking the experience of what you've seen and what I've seen and sharing all the different ways companies have done it, but more importantly, the most consistent success stories that we've seen. I'm meeting with a company in January with their senior management, a new company out of San Diego, and it's the same exact thing. They went down there, they presented it. It sounds great. We want to roll it out. And management, of course, quite often believes that their support, or what we call senior management commitment, is financing it. And we find that is not what that really means. It's part of it, but they have to understand it. And that takes quite a bit of time and effort to get your senior management to understand it. Because as you talk about a lot, and I've stole this line from you a lot, is, their reaction to failure. And I know others have mentioned that as well, but that can really set a practitioner behind as far as trying to implement this philosophy that we call human performance. But also another thing that you talk about a lot, and I've really had a lot of success with this as well, is that safety is not the absence of events, it's the presence of defenses. And that really rings true with people. And when they start thinking of it in that way, then you start a whole new dialogue. Because to me, the dialogue now is not what are all the things I have to do to implement it. It's, wow, how do I actually sit down and look at a job and twist it 180 degrees and say, what's the easiest and fastest way to do this job from the worker's perspective, which also brings in human ingenuity, which we talk about a lot nowadays. Then go back and insert the defenses and, like you mentioned too, fail safe. And I think fail safe is fail safe in safety, fail safe in mission interruption, fail safe in damage, the things I talk about a lot. So I think it would be a great conversation to have and invite people to participate in what we have learned, and just the terminology that we tend to use nowadays versus 12, 15 years ago. It's different, and we've matured so much. And I think that's not so much you and I, but the companies have matured so much that we've learned from them, which has caused us to have to rethink and progress. And then the other thing that's a big deal is, of course, the new millennials and X's and Y's that have been out there for a while. What a wonderful opportunity to get a whole new group of people introduced to this. But to me, that would be the big discussion. In fact, that's what we ought to call it, the big discussion.
Oh, I love that.
On human performance.
I love that. And so let me give you my fantasy, if I could. I mean, okay. So wait a minute. I'm not going to give you my real fantasy.
Let's kind of share that another time. Shane, maybe that I'll wait for another trip in Bangkok.
That's right, Shane. That involves you wearing a leotard. Let's go there, okay? my fantasy is that we sit around in a circle, a bunch of friends, old and new, who are all doing this work, who are all struggling, and we don't speak as teacher and student. We speak as practitioner to practitioner, and we all share cross-functionally our experiences. I really like the idea of asking people what they want to talk about, where their pain points are, and then moving forward collectively with those pain points and having that discussion, and then tossing in, teachable moments and opportunities, good experiences, bad experiences, opportunities to learn, and to do that for maybe half a day. I mean, a pretty good amount of time where we build a case where we talk about that. I think that would be really cool.
I think you're right. I think that you would agree with me. I hope that when I facilitate a course, I learn every bit as much from the students that have been doing it for a while and are coming back for refreshers or advanced courses or whatever than they do for me. I mean, a discussion is a great way to formulate the thoughts in such a way that, a really good example of this is I now talk in my class. Have you ever been guilty of saying to someone, do you know what I think? Or you know what I mean? You know what I mean, right? You know what I mean? Well, that's a stupid question, because that's basically saying, do you know what's in my head? Whereas these discussions are verbalizing our thoughts and even our intent of we thought what would happen or what we wanted to happen and why it didn't. Well, that is a great premise to start with. In fact, the half a day could be a discussion on the issues that are verbalized and the most common ones that we all see and we all feel. And then you could have one heck of a brainstorming session on what individuals or what we collectively, which I think would be powerful, what we collectively think would be a way to come up with some answers to those top 10 issues. But yeah, there's plenty of people out there that have got experience that. I agree with you totally. This should not be a Shane and Todd sitting up on the stage sharing the same old stuff we have. They've heard us. They know us. It should be them and us having a discussion.
The big discussion, if I remember our name correctly.
The big discussion.
And then
the one that's going to be talked about throughout the rest of the year.
And then in the afternoon, I'd like to shift gears and make it a discussion about sort of path forward. So we take the brainstorming session that we did in the morning based upon real problems, real pressure points, real goal conflicts. And then we move forward and maybe we talk about what the future looks like. And from within that group of people, because I think the group of people will be so valuable, we sort of get where they are currently and we help understand where they're moving to. And I think the afternoon we really focus on deliberate improvement, that we, and by deliberate, I use that word carefully, that we strategize and create a path forward, each individually, for what a deliberate improvement plan looks like for ourselves and our organizations. What do you think about that?
I think that'd be great, because what we could do with that is by getting the input, and this is kind of like doing a 10-year assessment, so to speak, or a 15-year assessment on where we've been and what all of our the people that we've served, what their concerns are now. But wouldn't it be neat to have that deliberate path forward, and then somehow, and I'm just thinking out loud here, we kind of track it with us. This group becomes kind of a unified group, and not necessarily meeting in person, but somehow either on my homepage or your homepage, we could kind of track how people are doing and start this whole new group discussion on what worked, what didn't work, and slowly groom the new view, stealing Sidney Decker's words, the new view part 2 of human performance.
I love it. I think that's a great idea.
I think that you've always said that you and I and others have stood on the shoulders of giants, and I totally agree with that. I mean, some of the names that we talk about a lot, the Reasons, the Deckers, and all the others out there. But I think it also would be great now to take what we've learned, because we've learned a lot, Todd, over the years from people taking our classes, implementing it, but kind of taking that new view and doing exactly what you said. Where are we at with that? How has that worked? What's our current status as far as what do we need to tweak? And then come up with that I don't want to say new plan, because it's not new, but maybe an updated and current process of hurdles and stuff that we need to overcome, and then produce that plan, whatever that plan looks like.
I like it. And then the second day, unfortunately, you're gonna head out mysteriously.
I have to fail, and I apologize. Yes.
That's right, because you can never be in town more than one day in a row.
Not more than it's part of my release agreement with the government.
With the government.
Yes. When I got those. Well, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, I know exactly. It's the restraining order thing that you have to respect. I know it's important. But then that second day, we build into there. We build off that future planning we'd done that first afternoon, and really talk specifically about probably the most important foundational tool of human performance, which is the ability to learn. And we do an advanced discussion on learning, and then wrap it up that second afternoon with kind of a summarization. And we'll just kind of carry what the plus delta, what we got out of this, where we need to go, and what that means to us. I think the second day is really kind of like the icing on the cake, because if you're going to travel to Denver to go to the conference or the big discussion, sorry, I don't want to call it a master class. I think that's just pompous and wrong.
Yeah.
But if you're going to travel to Denver to go to the big discussion, then you might as well take at least part of that second day and do some workshopping around learning. And I can bring in, Andrea Baker or somebody who does a lot of this learning stuff, and have them do the advanced concepts of learning as well.
Well, and I think that's important, because it's one thing to have ideas. It's a whole nother thing on actually having an actionable process in mind of how do I go back and actually do this now. And so, I think that's a great idea, is end it with something you can walk away with, basically what we used to call in the old days a work breakdown structure. What am I going to do within this next week, this next month, this next year, related to what we discussed? And I think the nice thing too is we need to keep in mind that there's no reason in the world we cannot start some sort of a communication with this group, that we're touching base once in a while, we're throwing hurdles or things we maybe didn't think of back into the question box for everybody to comment on, and just see where this goes.
I really like
that
idea. And we can use your webpage is perfect for that. I mean, you've got a really good I don't even have a webpage.
Yeah, and I didn't until I started doing my open enrollment classes, as you know, Todd. But what we can do is I can set up on my webpage a box that'll say the big conversation. Is that what we're calling it?
Big discussion. You made this name up.
Discussion.
The big discussion.
I know. I can't even. The big discussion, and put the dates and time and everything, and we'll even allow people to sign up so that they can make sure to grab a spot in that thing. And we'll get as soon as you and I get a chance, we'll get the address of the hotel and where it's going to be, so people can make reservations and stuff. But we can use the bushcohpi.com homepage. And like I said, it'll probably, today's the 18th. What day are we doing this? I don't even know what today is.
We're doing this February 6 and 7.
No, I mean as far as today.
I'm
trying to give people an idea.
November 18th.
18th. So November 18th, I would say sometime very shortly after Thanksgiving, we ought to have the page up and running to where people can get in there and register for the class. And you and I can talk in the meantime and add what we think we can as far as a very loose agenda, but at least they'll know what to expect when they come.
Perfect. So final thoughts. What do you want to get out of this for you and for the people who attend the big discussion?
You know, honestly, it's the next step. It's the best way to put it is part 2 of the new view. What is it now that we have learned that we can share with one another? Because what's going to be so interesting to me is to see either if everybody's concerns tend to line up, or if people's current concerns, are all over the board. And I really don't know the answer to that, because I think that in working with these companies, I've heard it, depending on their culture, depending on their management style. So to me, what we need to get out of it is an honest, objective view, rather, of where are most people in comparison to where you and I think they are. Because you and I, we've talked about it a lot in what we see, but we need to let them have the word and let them have the opportunity to say, you know what, this is really what we're having as far as issues and hurdles. And that could be such a great discussion for us that have, and I'm not talking about you and I when I say us in this case, I'm talking about all of us in that meeting, to be able to come back and say, what is it that we can do to share with one another a way to overcome these hurdles? I think that would be then to me, I'm 10 times more interested than I was 10 minutes ago, because I want to hear what they have to say.
Me
I
too.
want to know what everybody's current view of the new view, or the new safety, that we have been talking about. But
And I think I'm exactly the same way, too. I'm kind of like Shane. The mystery is where it's at, because the mystery is interesting, because knowing where people are and what they've learned and what stories they have to tell and what problems they're tackling and successfully overcoming, that is super, super interesting to me as well. If you want to sign up, go to bushcohpi.com. 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 And Shane's got that set up on his webpage to actually do the registration. And that'll help you a ton, because you can actually register right there, pay by credit card, everything will be done. The rooms are set up. There's a block of rooms, probably under my name. It usually is at that Embassy Suites in Denver. You can grab a place there as well. For the most part, you're more than welcome, as long as you understand that the goal of this is the big discussion. And that, I think, will help us. It's certainly something that you guys have asked for, and it's something that I'm incredibly interested in doing. And I think it'll be fun. I mean, that's appealing to me, that we can just get together and have some fun and think about how the world is changing and what we need to be prepared for, which directions we're moving, how we can learn, how we can improve. Those things, I think, are powerful. And that'll be a big part of our entire discussion. That's what we want, right? That is, in essence, the class, the workshop, the get-together, the reunion, the strategy session, the meeting, the big discussion. And you're invited. Please, if you can, build some time in. But remember, this is not the class for people who've never sort of thought about these ideas before. This is the big discussion for people who are doing this work now. And maybe that'll work. Who knows? It's a great mystery. It could fail, giantly. Other stuff has. But I'm willing to risk it. I think this is worth it. I signed a contract at the hotel. I think we're home free, and that's all that matters. That's right. They're going to have 2 great lunches. Those are the things, and cookies. Those are the things I care about. So, and there's the House of Dank right across the street. So, if it gets really bad, you can just go to the House of Dank and change your attitude completely. Everything will be perfect. That's the rules. So Shane Bush, Todd Conklin, a couple days on a big discussion around human performance, safety differently, what hurts, what we're learning, where we're heading, and then wrap it up with learning and a summary. That's the day. That's what we want to invite you to be a part of. Thanks for your time. Learn something new every single day. Bet you did today. Have as much fun as you possibly can. Work your magic to see if you can come to the workshop. It'd be nice to have you. And until then, as always, be safe.